So, Nicky, here we are at Seven Barrows to talk through your squad heading towards Aintree for their three-day festival. But I suppose the first question is, how do you feel your team are heading up to Liverpool this week after, of course, we saw what did or didn't happen at Cheltenham?
Well, it's very difficult because a week before Cheltenham, I'd have told you we were in really good shape. And the last bits of work had all gone well, testing had gone well, and, we were all happy. But then things went badly wrong, as everybody knows. Admittedly, there'd been a fair few horses running disappointingly. They were hardly flag bearers, and the ground was so bad at the time, you could nearly excuse everybody. And to be honest, the ground's equally bad now. That is a worry. But, the same for everybody, but ours are notoriously better on better ground rather than softer ground. So, we've got to overcome that. But I'd be very happy the way it's gone. We've asked a lot of questions of the horses in the last 10 days. Not big questions, because they've been great big gallops or anything like that. They've come through their exercises very well. They've looked well. They've been working well. And most importantly, we cannot find anything wrong with them, which is a bit like the picture we had before Cheltenham, I hate to say. But, they are well. They were very fresh this morning. And the work's been good. So we've just, and as I say, their scopes are good, their bloods are good, everything's right. So, you've just got to take the last sort of 4 or 5 weeks. Not even that, 4. Up until the middle of February, they were going great guns. They really were. And they were in terrific form. But as we know, Cheltenham was a cloud, and that was it. So we can only hope. We'll know by Thursday night.
What did you have to do to sort of almost reassemble the whole team after that week at Cheltenham? Was it literally just a week of them doing nothing, or what did you have to do to try and rebuild them back up again?
We stopped on the Friday at Cheltenham. We literally pushed them all back into very gentle, slow exercise. You couldn't afford to do nothing with them. But, they were still hacking around because, to all intents and purposes, they were fit and healthy horses that weren't running very well. For that, we know not why. But what have we done? Yeah, we just had from that Friday and then the whole of the following week up until the following Monday, we just literally hacked them round in the sand, and they just did a routine just to keep their backs down and keep them ticking until we started again 10 days later. And we built them up until they were ready to work the following Saturday. They worked again last Saturday, and here we are. We think we're ready to go. We'll know the answer on Thursday night, to be honest with you. If Thursday's important all round, and if they've all fallen flat on their faces, well, I don't know what we'll do Friday and Saturday.
Well, let's get stuck into the nitty-gritty then. We'll talk about your horses. SIR GINO, of course, who's on target for the 4-year-old hurdle. It's a race that you've got a good record in. I think you've even Binocular won it a few years ago, Pentland Hills as well, and We Have a Dream. Obviously, he was so impressive on trials day at Cheltenham. You didn't run him in the Triumph. How has he been since we last saw him?
Well, it was sad because, to be fair, there was nothing wrong with him. It was just by the time we got to the Friday in Cheltenham, I'd completely lost my bottle altogether. I just didn't dare run him. Now, at the time, I had no worries with him whatsoever. He was working brilliantly. I think he's a very, very good horse, but we're going to find out sooner or later. Yeah, he looked very, very good at Cheltenham, and his work the last week has been up to that sort of standard. Hopefully we find out that he is still very, very good. He is.
I know you've always held him in high regard, and you've sort of almost not made a secret of the fact sort of how good you think he could be. You've had some very good juveniles down the years. Would it be fair to say that he would rate as one of the best potentially that you've got in that sort of that age group?
He's only had 2 runs. We hoped it might be that sort of case, but let's just see what he can show us on Thursday, and then we'll all know.
And I suppose one good thing, the fact he's come over from France, he's raced on soft ground over there, so you'd be quite hopeful that he will handle conditions.
You would, if those French, if you've been round Auteuil, it's nothing but very soft, so it shouldn't inconvenience him.
Okay, let's talk about SHISHKIN, who won the bowl last year, bids to gain back-to-back victories in that race. I mean, he's been a sort of stop-start season for him, but when he's good, he is pretty good, isn't he?
Well, he's very good.
Yeah.
And I mean, he was as a 2-miler, he was as a 2.5-miler, and now the trainer's bothered to find out what his right trip is. I think we're in good shape. Nicky rode him on Saturday, said he felt fantastic, and we're ready to rock and roll. I hope. We had to miss the Gold Cup. Well, you know, there's nothing else you could do. That's what we kept him for. The King George, you know, he's just hasn't been his year, has it? I mean, the King George, well, you can argue whether he would or he wouldn't have won. I mean, we are personally going to, I've always felt that he would have done. Be surprised if he'd got beaten from there, to be honest with you. So let's hope he can sort of put it all to rights. He certainly deserves it.
Would you say it was a help or a hindrance, the fact that he didn't run in the Gold Cup? Would you say he's better fresh, or he needs that run to sort of get him back going again?
Well, he probably does go well fresh on the grounds that the biggest worry for the King George was that it was going to be his first run of the season, only because he'd had the blip at Ascot where we decided to stay at the start. And so, you know, I was worried that being his first run of the season in a race of the calibre of the King George, that was going to be a very hard task. Well, okay, whether he would have won or not, as I say, we think he would. That was his first run of the year, so he was going to be running very well fresh that day. He's certainly very fresh this week. And it is going to be like his, well, it's his second run, which should be ideal.
It looks a very competitive race this year. You've obviously got the Gold Cup placer, Jerry Colombe, a Brave Man's Game, Protect Tracks are possible in it as well. I mean, it's a proper grade one, isn't it?
It's a seriously good race. So it should be.
Yeah.
I mean, it's possibly a sort of consolation prize for the Gold Cup, but I mean, bar the winner, it's a Gold Cup.
In the Aintree hurdle, you've got Luccia, who ran a great race, finishing third in the Unibet Champion hurdle.
I mean, Luccia certainly, the line of thought there is probably that we haven't got anywhere else to go except for Wait for Punchdown, where the 2-mile mares hurdle, where you'd expect Luccia to turn up. Now, you know, we were third in the Champion hurdle. Be interesting to find out where we compare with Lossiemouth, to find out whether Lossiemouth would have been fourth or first in the Champion hurdle. Snake Man didn't exactly get a million miles away from Luccia. I mean, that's probably the bit that really, you know, chews us, is that, you know, we know where Luccia would sit with Constitution Hill, and 5 lengths wouldn't bring them together. So where would, I don't know. Anyway, Lossiemouth I thought was brilliant both times, and therefore, not only do we not want to take her on, I would be dying, and all, having said that, having always felt she would not stay 2.5. We've resisted it, but I think now is an opportunity to do that, with a view to, well, if she did, then it gives us a whole lot of new options for next season.
Yeah.
And it makes it much easier. And so she hasn't got to go chasing Constitution Hill around again. If she stays, she stays. We'll find out. On
to day 2 of the Aintree meeting, Nicky, and your big gun on the Friday is JONBON in the Melling Chase. I don't want to say blotted his copybook last time, because I thought he still ran very, very well under the circumstances in the Clarence House Chase.
He did. I mean, it was disappointing, and he never got into a rhythm on the day, to be fair. I mean, it was, I don't say it was something waiting to happen, but it was, you know, he hadn't settled into it as well as one would have liked. He got untidy. Having said that, you know, you felt he was still a bit unlucky not to win, really, but it would have been a messy performance. I pretty much sure looking forward to running him over 2.5 for the first time, because I think that really will suit him. He's a horse that really just wants to be going forward. Let him go and jump and enjoy himself. I think that's the secret to him. And he's been in very good form. He's been schooling very well. Nicker's been in and out of here every other day, just wanting to school him. I mean, and he loves it. We've been all sorts of places with him. So I'm hopeful he's, you know, everybody's happy with him. And I've always thought he might be better on good ground, but he's won in soft and heavy, so he's a pretty versatile horse. And when he's right, and I think he is, then we're ready to. I think he's a horse they've got to get out and beat.
And as you said, you're stepping him up in trip, and I suppose if he wins, that does give you a few more options as to where you go next season. It opens it up a bit, doesn't it? Anyway.
Oh, it opens it up a lot, and I mean, how far? If he gets this far, how far? He could just be falling into the SHISHKIN sort of thing. He keeps giving us that he's a 2-miler.
Yeah.
And proving himself at 2 miles. So why switch? But like with SHISHKIN, if you remember, I mean, he had that wonderful battle with Energene. Well, those were 2-milers if ever there were on the day. Mm. But come the end of the season and the start of the next one, he was crying out for 2.5. Got him to 2.5 at Ascot, and then we finished up at Aintree last year with over 3. So he jumped from 2 to 3 in one season, which is a strange thing to do. But I wouldn't be surprised if JONBON has just sort of fooled us a little bit into thinking he's a 2-miler, when actually he's got bags of stamina.
I suppose his class is just getting him through, perhaps, over those shorter distances.
The same with SHISHKIN.
Yeah. I know after the Clarence House was off at Ascot, and obviously it was rescheduled to Cheltenham. I know you said you got that sort of nail screwed so tight, and then you had to sort of undo it and loosen it again. Is it a similar story because obviously he didn't run at Cheltenham in the champion chase? Did you have to sort of start again?
Yeah, I think it's right. I think for that first race, the first Clarence House, we were facing El Fabiolo that day, and we had to be absolutely. It was the day I was genuinely looking forward to it. I thought we could really, El Fabiolo had the. I did say the better run in, but we'd done little wrong. But I was just sort of quietly, secretly thinking we can beat him, and looking forward to it, and taking him on round Ascot, which is a big test. And it wasn't to be, sadly. That was off, and not surprisingly, El Fabiolo didn't come back for the rerun at Cheltenham. As it happened, it would have made no difference. But I really was happy that day. But he was well prepared for Ascot. The week, I know I've made I said that he's hard to hold there for a week. I mean, it's not that hard, but with him, that is he lives a little bit on his nerves and that's him. Yeah. That's the way he is. If you like, just completely the opposite to a Constitution Hill who doesn't give a monkey's about life. But I don't think it was that difficult. We were ready for Cheltenham. It wasn't to be. We did the same with him, with the rest of them. We just let them off for 10 days. He's come back in very good form. We didn't actually stop with him because there wasn't really a lot wrong with him. We know there wasn't. But it was the right thing not to do it.
Okay, Shanagh Bob is also in action on the Friday in the Sefton, the 3-mile Grade 1 novices hurdle. We've only seen him once this season, and he was impressive in the Grade 2 Albert Bartlett trial. Of course, you didn't run him in the Albert Bartlett, as we've touched on already. How good do you think he could be?
I don't really know. He's a horse that would fool you a little bit. He wouldn't give you. I mean, to be fair, actually, he did start at Plumpton.
Actually, I should say, twice we've seen him, yeah.
And it sort of probably tells you a little bit that we started at Plumpton first time out, that it's not the sort of normal schooling ground we use, and nursery ground, I suppose you could call it. But it's a great track, don't get me wrong. But you wouldn't expect to see the Albert Bartlett favourite going round Plumpton that time of the year, I wouldn't think, but it's all right. And he was good, and then we moved straight into Cheltenham, and he was really impressive. I hoped he was just doing that all the way. And he was a lovely horse. He's going to jump a fence. And I'd love him to come through this, because if he can, then, we go into novice chasing next year with a top-class horse on our hands.
I don't want to sort of compare him to the likes of Bobsworth, but does he sort of fit in to that sort of character, the fact that he just sort of gets the job done? He might not be impressive in his victories, but he just, he's a proper grinder.
Yeah, he is. I mean, the fact that they both got Bob in their name has got nothing to do with it. They have got a similar sort of way of life.
Yeah.
It's, yeah, okay, Gov, I'll go and do what you want me to do. But I don't have to be flashy every day, do I? No. So let's just get the work done and get out there, and then I'll show you what I can do.
Yeah.
He's a lovely horse.
Fantastic lady is a lovely mare as well. She's in the top. You, of course, did have her in the Grand National as well. She's running here over the shorter trip. She ran in it last year, ran well. What are your thoughts on her going into this year's renewal?
Yeah, she was fantastic. She was second last year, and it was a wonderful performance. But better ground, unfortunately. I mean, we would have thought about the Grand National had it been on good ground, but I think we all know the Grand National course is going to be very slow, and it'll be hard work for them all. She technically knows how to jump most things. She spent a lot of her younger life in the hunting field, so she's professional. If she can handle the ground, she's got to be competitive, because she also stays well. And so 2 miles 6 is going to look like 3 miles by the end.
And it's a race that you've got a good record in as well, isn't it?
Our record at the Topham is about as bad as our record is in the Grand National. I have no idea why. I think we won 6 or 7. And it's extraordinary. I mean, and barely get one round in the Grand National. So I've no idea. Yeah, I love the Topham.
I'm trying to think of the good mare of Whaley Cohen's. Won it a few times.
Libertine.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
No, we've had, it's been a great race for us, and I don't know why it just doesn't work.
Okay, let's move on to Saturday, Grand National Day. Unfortunately, no running for you in this year's race. The Liverpool hurdle, though, good 3 mile Grade 1. You've got Champ.
Champ, he is a 3 miler. I mean, he's been there in all these games all the way through. I mean, this will be the first time that Paisley Park actually hasn't been there with him. They've been too. He and Paisley have been brilliant. They've had so many battles together. Paisley's retired, and we missed Cheltenham, and we're here. And I think we think he's in very good form. Again, he's not a horse that does an awful lot at home, but he just seems very fresh and bright and perky. And
in the Mersey Novices Hurdle, 2.5 mile Grade 1, another Grade 1. You've got 2 in this, Peaky Boy and Django Bay. Let's start off with Peaky Boy. Again, he was very impressive. We haven't seen too much of him, but was very impressive at Cheltenham.
I think these are 2 smart novices, and I think the nice thing about this whole sort of the team here this year, you often get it. We got no novice chasers this year to talk about, but we've got a really, really good bunch of novice hurdlers, all lurking around in this 2.5, 3 mile area, that are all next year's novice chasers. So I think next year I'd be really disappointed if we haven't got some proper, Grade 1, 2, 3 novice chasers, because these are lovely horses. The 2 in here, Django Bay, well, he won the Tolworth round here on Boxing Day. Surprised me a little bit. I can't, it's a sharp 2 miles, and he can be a bit gassy early on. He'd won at Ascot before that. He's undoubtedly a good. Having said that, having won the top with Tolworth, he got his Grade 1 penalty, and consequently his next 2 runs were in Grade 2s with a £5 penalty, and he got beaten a lot less than the penalty. The penalty stopped him, but it cost him 2 good races. Obviously, he's without the penalty this time because it's a Grade 1, and that'll help. He's good, and so is Peaky Boy. As you say, he just doesn't seem to take his racing terribly easily. His couple of runs, and both times it's taken a long time for him to recover from it. He probably puts a lot in. Got a lot of talent. And it'll be, I look forward to these 2, because we could have even run quite a few more in it, but I think these are the ones that want to be here at this stage and deserve to have a crack at something like this. And I say it'd be nice if one of them could go and collect, because that takes the whole team forward, if you like. You know where they are, but they're pretty smart.
Assuming the ground is on the soft side, which is obviously likely to be, of those two, Peaky Boy and Django Bay, would it suit anyone slightly better?
So. I think they're both pretty versatile, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. As I said, unfortunately, no Grand National runner for you this year, but of course, I've got to get your selection. 34 runners this year, a reduced field. What do you make to the shape of the race? Anything catch your eye? Corrit Rambler, do you think he's going to do it again?
Well, no, I think the horse I will support, and I'd love to see him win, will be I Am Maximus.
Yeah.
We had him here.
The one that got away.
Yeah, exactly. And it was sad. It was sad because, it's all finished very sadly. I mean, the good thing is that he's owned by JP, he's trained by Willie. And I knew when I knew they were going, I said to Willie, you want to make sure you get your bits on I Am Maximus, because he's the one. And JP bought him after that, and Mike sadly died. And, it's all very, very sad. But in those days when Mike had these horses and Stuart Parkin, when they were together, and we had some wonderful days and rather horrific ones at times, I have to say. But at the same, Maximus was lovely. It was all about the future. He was going to be a great big chaser. He was an ungainly sort of youngster, but talented without doubt. And we were sort of nurturing this young thing. So I'm going to claim all the credit if he wins.
I was going to say, if it wins, you could have a sort of joint trainer partnership.
Absolutely.
Willie Mullins and Nicky Henderson.
He jolly well better like me. No, I'd like to see him win. I really would, for everybody's sake. I mean, at least we'd have had something to do with the Grand National winner. Even if it spent 2 years while I messed about with it. Yeah.
Nicky, 2 runners in the Scottish Champion Hurdle up at Ayr, Dodgy the Great and First Street. Both 2 rock-solid chances, I'd say.
I'd been dying to go a bit further with Dodgy the Great, and he ran some, he's a lovely big horse. And we've actually decided to keep him for Ayr because that is his home. Kenny Alexander's stud is literally within a 9 of Ayr Racecourse, so that's where he goes for his holiday. So I thought he'd like to go home. Race at home track. That's absolutely irrelevant, but there you go. A 2 mile 5 round there should be perfect for him. And First Street, I would have thought if you'd hope air might dry up a bit. We tend to think that air can often come up with good. Sometimes it can be even quicker than that. So it would suit First Street. I think he'll get further, and I think he's probably too high in the handicap. But I think the track and the ground, if possible, would suit him well.
What were your thoughts on Doddy's run at Cheltenham? Just putting it down to the Formula E.
He ran better than most, actually.
Yeah.
He ran a good race for a long way. But you had to sort of feel that he came under the same banner as most of the others.
Okay. Should we just leave it there then?
Yep.